Mental health experts share their go-to phrases when talking to someone about depression, along with the 3 things you should never say to someone with depression. You definitely know someone with depression. It might even be you. Fact: 1 in 3 people in the U.S. will struggle with depression at some point during their life, and 1 in 8 will have a major depressive episode, according to the National Alliance on Mental Illness. But knowing that someone has depression and knowing how to talk with them about it, even if you've had experience with it yourself, are 2 different things. Because it can be tricky to gauge the right thing to say in the moment, it's a good idea to plan how to support loved ones in your life during their dark times. To help, mental health experts revealed the wisest, most supportive, and most compassionate words to say to someone who is depressed. What you should not say to someone with depression. Even when they go into it with the best of intentions, there are some common mistakes people make when talking with someone about depression, says psychiatrist and neuroscientist Dave Rabin, MD, PhD, co-founder of Apollo Neuroscience, offering unsolicited advice. We get it. You just want to help them feel better. But before you tell them to try meditation or suggest that gratitude journaling is the cure for their sadness, take a step back and listen. Dr. Rabin says, it's not that those things can't help, but what people with depression need first is compassion and a listening ear. Telling them how they should feel. When someone is feeling depressed, the temptation is real to point out to them all the reasons they shouldn't be. But scolding on people is never kind or helpful. Plus, they already know those things. Depression isn't logical, it's an illness. Spouting memes. Sometimes depression memes or depression quotes can be helpful, but if you find yourself defaulting to cheesy social media sayings, every cloud has a silver lining. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It can feel minimizing to their pain, he says. What to say to someone who is depressed? Talking is a great first step to helping a loved one cope with depression. Too many people don't know what to say, so they end up not saying anything. And that can make the person suffering feel isolated and alone, which can then lead to more depression, says Sanam Hafiz, PhD, an NYC neuropsychologist. Communication, whether it's a text, call, video chat, or in person, is the priority, she adds. Not sure what, exactly, to communicate? Our experts share some of their go-to phrases if you're looking for what to say to someone who is depressed. Number 1. I'm thinking about you. How are you doing? Simply letting someone know that you are thinking about them and that you care how they are is powerful medicine, says Dr. Hafiz. The most important part of this, however, is to listen. More than anything, people just want to feel heard and understood. Listen mindfully and intentionally without interrupting. Number 2. I love you and I'm here for you always. One of the hardest parts of depression as a mental disorder is that it often convinces the sufferer that they are unlovable, something that you can show them isn't true. Dr. Hafiz says, you don't need to debate it with them. You don't really love me. Yes, I do, because you're arguing with their mental illness, not them. Simply state it, then reinforce it through loving actions. Number 3. How did today go? How was your meeting with your boss? Regular check-ins can be a lifeline to someone struggling. Dr. Hafiz says, these work best if you ask specific questions about details in their life rather than more general wording like everything ok. Number 4. I can't take this from you, but I can help you carry it. How can I support you? When you're unsure what to say, simply offering support is a great option. Dr. Hafiz says, you can even offer a few suggestions that you think might be helpful, such as driving them to an appointment, going on a walk together, or bringing over a meal. Number 5. I hear how upset you are, and your feelings are totally understandable. Depression can make people feel like outsiders or weirdos, especially if they feel like they don't have a good enough reason to feel depressed. But depression is a matter of brain chemistry more than circumstance, although the two can influence each other. Dr. Rabin says, validate their feelings and let them know they aren't weird or wrong. Number 6. I would love to listen if you'd like to talk. Want to grab coffee and chat? People with depression often feel like they or their feelings are a burden on others, so they may wait for permission or an invitation to talk before opening up. Dr. Hafiz says, telling them that you're not just willing to listen, but that you really want to listen is a perfect opening. Don't stop there though. Offer a time, place, or activity so they know you're serious, and not just offering platitudes. Number 7. What did the dog say when he got depressed? These are rough times. Don't know what to say? Try a dad joke about depression. A little light-hearted joking can bring a smile to your loved one's face and start a conversation, Dr. Hafiz says. Laughter can be incredibly healing and create a bond that leads to more intimate conversation. What is laugh therapy, and should you try it? Science suggests caring for our mental health doesn't have to be so serious. A leading humor expert explains the power of laugh therapy and how humor can shift your thoughts and perspective for the better. Laughter is more than an automatic response to a joke, according to 2023 research published in New Ideas in Psychology. Researchers believe that having a sense of humor may be a trait that's been preserved by natural selection over millennia to help humans survive. First, laughter is like social glue that helps us bond, crucial for our ancestors who relied on strength in numbers. And today, as studies continue to show that social relationships improve our physical health, mental wellness, and lifespans. But the research also says that laughter signals our nervous system that a perceived threat has passed, suppressing our fight or flight stress response. This effect is one reason why many mental health professionals are turning to laughter as a therapeutic tool through methods such as laugh therapy. What is laugh therapy? There's a distinction between laughter and humor, explains Stephen Sultanoff, PhD, a clinical psychologist and professor at Pepperdine University who has studied humor for 35 years. Humor is a stimulus and laughter is a response. He explains, the physical act of laughter itself has physiological benefits, even if it's forced. In fact, a 2020 study found that just smiling tricks your brain into feeling happier. But humor itself involves a shift in someone's perspective. Almost all psychological distress comes out of their thinking process. Dr. Sultanoff says, if you change people's negative thought processes, you directly impact their emotional well-being. That's where humor plays a role in mental health. Distressing emotions such as feeling anxious, angry, or depressed, and the uplifting emotion of humor cannot occupy the same psychological space, he says. So in laugh therapy, the therapist intervenes where these distressing emotions occur, helping people learn to change those thoughts and feelings through humor. How does laugh therapy work? Dr. Sultanoff says that the goal of laugh therapy is developing a comic vision, seeing the humor in the world around you, or taking a look at the stressors in your life and finding ways to see the funny side. He refers to one area of study in the humor field, how people cope after a disaster. We very often see people using humor as coping mechanisms after an event like a hurricane. He says, like putting up signs that say house for sale, some assembly required. This humor response helps distance someone from the distressing emotions of the event itself. In a clinical setting, laugh therapy aims to teach this response, Dr. Sultanoff says. And if you practice it, humor can become automatic, stemming negative thought patterns. He references one patient, a new father who suffered from severe anxiety and panic attacks. The patient shared a story about leaving a hair salon when the stylist noted it had started raining, advising him to cover up the baby. Immediately, he felt extremely anxious about being perceived as a bad father, Dr. Sultanoff says. So they began an exercise discussing what the patient could have said in reply to ease his anxiety. After the patient offered a few defensive and anxiety-driven responses, Dr. Sultanoff suggested, or we could say something like, well, the baby hasn't had a shower today. And he got this big grin on his face, he says. Then he came up with another. Don't worry about the baby. We had him scotch-guarded at the hospital. The distress this patient created for himself by repeating the scenario in his head lifted after he came up with a pleasant tone for it, Dr. Sultanoff explains. And they continued to practice this exercise in response to other stress-inducing situations. After some time, the patient developed this ability to find and create humor in everyday scenarios. It became part of the fabric of his life and greatly reduced his anxiety. Number 8. I don't know exactly how you feel, but I can sympathize. Tell me about your experience. If you have ever had depression, there's a temptation to assume that everyone's experience with the disease will be like yours, but that's not true. Dr. Hafiz says, practice empathy by asking them questions and relating it to your experiences. Don't make the conversation all about you, but sharing some of your feelings as well can help them feel less alone in their struggles.